If you're here, you're wondering, how do we homeschool in Missouri legally? Well, there's actually a lot of conflicting information out there depending on if you talk to locals, where the locals are from, if you're looking at hslda.org or Families for Home Education. There's a lot of stuff, not to mention that the Missouri.gov website is really hard to navigate and they do not make it easy to find all of the requirements when it comes to homeschooling in Missouri. So I'm going to break that down for you today, hopefully simplify it, and if you have any questions, please comment and let me know. I'm happy to answer them. Hi, I'm Rachel, a second-generation homeschooling mom to 5 kids. I was homeschooled in Texas my entire life, pre-K through graduation, and I have been homeschooling in Missouri for the past almost 8 years now. And there were times where I thought I was following the regulations to a T, and then turns out I wasn't, because I was listening to Jane down the road or Susie Q from over here. Don't listen to the locals. That's all I have to say, because I got some really bad information. Always, always, always do your own research. So I hope this video can help you along your research path and help give you the best up-to-date information. So first things first, your students have to be enrolled between the ages of 7 and 17. So if you have a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, even 6-year-old, you do not have to follow these specific regulations. They are not technically old enough. Just have fun and learn through everyday life. You do not have to make it difficult right now. But if they are young and you just want to get a heads up of how it's going to be, this video is for you, and I'm really glad you came. So next, to be considered a homeschooler in Missouri, you cannot charge a tuition fee or receive any funds. Now, does Missouri offer ESA funds, that's educational savings account funds? Yes, they do, but that's a whole nother ball game, and I'm happy to get into that in another video, but right now we're just going over the laws and regulations for homeschooling in Missouri legally. So you have to provide 1,000 hours of instructions per child per school year. Hopefully I didn't lose you there. 600 of those 1,000 have to be in one or more of the following subjects. You do not have to cover every single one of these subjects. It is worded this way for a reason. So one or more subjects. The core subjects listed are reading, math, social studies, language arts, and science. And I'm just going to tell you right now that we get pretty much half of our hours in reading alone. And these subjects must be taught according to your child's age and ability. So if your 10-year-old is doing 2nd grade language arts and truancy gets called and opens an investigation, they're going to wonder, why are you doing 2nd grade? And you're going to need to provide them answers. Are you doing 2nd grade because your child just wants to? Are you doing 2nd grade because that is truly their learning level? You know, you have to provide these answers in case truancy gets called, but you do not have to answer to anyone. You don't have to submit anything. You don't have to do anything unless you are taking your child out of public school. They're already enrolled. Then you'll have to submit a withdrawal letter to the school stating your intent to homeschool. Moving on, 400 of the 600 hours, I'm going to put it up on the screen so it doesn't get too confusing, must occur at your regular homeschool location. What does that mean? Well, do you sit at the table and do school at home most days? Or do you go to the library? Maybe you go down to the park most of your days. Maybe you travel a lot and you're in the vehicle. You know, that is going to be your regular homeschool location. Wherever you regularly do school, that is it. So 400 of your hours must be there. And honestly, during the hot months and the cold months, we pretty much get our 400 hours inside. Other than that, we're outside and we're in the vehicle a lot. Now I'm going to skip this section here that talks about moving to Missouri, because that's a little section in of itself, and you can find that on hslda.org. It's very simplified and I highly recommend looking it over. Okay, to homeschool in Missouri, you need to maintain these records specifically, and I'm going to refer to HSLDA, but also the Missouri statute on Missouri.gov website. So HSLDA says a plan book, diary, or other record indicating the subjects taught and educational activities engaged in. So if you're doing science projects, if you are learning about dance through YouTube, all kinds of things, like you have to keep some type of record of all of these activities. HSLDA highly recommends you do like a daily log, which is what I do here in my planner. We just fill out a daily log of our hours. So I'll do, for our math, I've already written like what curriculum we're using in the front, math, what lesson we're on, and how many hours it was. History, I typically do 1 hour, oops, I dropped stuff, per subject, but I just needed to add a quick note. I would like to say that we do have an hourly schedule laid out, and I do allot 1 hour for math. So if it only takes my child 20 minutes to finish their math lesson, we still work on math for at least the entire hour. A lot of times it could be 45 minutes, 50 minutes, not quite the hour, but I do try to work on that subject for an hour. So whether we're doing extra math facts, reading books about math, or sometimes even doing an extra lesson, we try to fill an entire hour so that I can justify logging it for an hour. That's not what the law says. You have to log the actual amount of time that you spent on that subject. Now, there is some wiggle room. For instance, you need to stay consistent. If your child takes 45 minutes to do math, maybe 30 to 45 minutes to do math, and you log that as an hour, you need to constantly log it as an hour. But in the same way, if your child takes an hour and a half to do it, you need to still be logging that as an hour. You cannot be logging it as 2 hours whenever there's going to be some wiggle room. Because as homeschoolers, we know some days it does take them longer to do a subject, and other days they fly through it. So you need to make sure you're staying consistent. For instance, my 8-year-old, she reads every single day. All of my children read every single day. Some days she reads 10, 15, 20 minutes. Other days, she reads for an hour and a half. But I always give her 30 minutes of reading each day, because there may be one day during the week where she doesn't actually sit down to read. I always let my children choose what they want to read. I don't require any specific reading of them, especially in elementary or middle school, because that's when we should be fostering their love for reading, not requiring certain reading that might not be interesting to them, or it could be over their head. Now, my oldest daughter is 14, and I do actually have some required reading for her as she's getting into high school, and she's going to be graduating soon. So there are books on our list that we will require her to read. Now, moving on to record keeping. You must maintain samples of your child's work. Now, on the Missouri.gov website, it says a portfolio of samples of the child's academic work, a record of evaluations of the child's academic progress, or other written or credible evidence equivalent to A and C, which is a plan book and record of evaluation. HSLDA also says you must keep academic evaluations. Now, this is where it gets a little confusing for some parents. It's important to read these brackets right here. It says that the academic evaluations could be regular tests in various subjects. So, what does that mean? I'm going to show you an example of our AOP science. This is our Life Pack Science. Now, this is just the teacher's guide, but they actually have, it's probably right here. Perfect. They call them self-tests, but these tests right here 100% count as an academic evaluation. Now, this is additional to what is already in her workbook, but if you're choosing a curriculum that has tests or self-test or quizzes, whatever they call it, then that is going to count for your academic evaluation. You could do annual standardized testing, map testing, whatever you want, but you don't actually have to do that because this is considered a regular test. What has made it easy for us is if our curriculum that we use don't have testing. For elementary and middle school, I have been able to go to turtlediary.com. I guess it's more for elementary, and create evaluations or tests for my children. Then I can print those out and keep that on hand. You could also find many other websites to help you create tests so that you can keep that on hand in their portfolio. We also use teaching textbooks for math, and about every 7 to 10 lessons there is a test or quiz. Depending on how old the child is, they call it a test or quiz. So if you are choosing curriculum that has those tests in it, that counts, and I would keep those in your portfolio. Now, do I personally keep an actual portfolio? No, I do not. I keep a tote with each of my children's name on it, and that is where I keep all of their stuff. So if somebody calls on me and wants to see what my kids have done, they have their individual organized totes. I have folders in there for each subject and years that they've done things so that they're able to easily go through it and look through everything that my children have learned. You can also put pictures in there or science projects, depending on how big or small they are. You can keep so many things on hand. I am also a content creator, and I do quite a few like day in the life of homeschool videos. So those actually count as proof as well, because we live in the 21st century. Things are a little bit different, even though some regulations can feel old. That still counts. So if you're creating content and videos, that will count as proof as well, especially if you can provide the full video. Okay, moving on. For HSLDA and Missouri.gov, it says that you must always have on hand at least 2 full years worth of records unless you're just starting out. So make sure you're keeping 2 years worth of that on hand. And I think it's important to note that when you choose to homeschool, you can homeschool in any capacity that suits your family. You want to be a secular homeschooler, religious homeschooler, whatever it may be, you can legally do that in Missouri. All 50 states technically, but it is noted in the Missouri.gov specifically. Has the primary purpose the provision of private or religious-based instruction. Now, if you want to get into learning about FPE, family-paced education, let me know. I'm happy to go into detail about that if you're interested. And through that program, you can receive educational savings account funds. I don't know how that works. I don't know anybody in Missouri who has chosen this route, because I'm telling you right now, after looking into it, and I messaged people about it, everything, because I wanted to get a clear answer, it is awful, okay? It's just awful, and it's not what homeschoolers want, but I'm happy to give you information on that. If you have any more questions about homeschooling in Missouri, drop them in the comments, let me know. Let me know if you found this helpful or if you found information that you forgot about or maybe never heard of.